Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabeth Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabeth Bachman.
Hello, and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. This is the podcast where we interview experts from around the world on subjects such as branding, leadership, diversity, presentation skills, and communication. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host. And before we get to our really interesting, fun expert today, I'd like to invite you to see where your presentation skills are strong by taking our free 4-minute assessment at speakforresultsquiz.com. That's www.speakforresultsquiz.com. And that's where you can see where your presentation skills are strong and helping you, and where perhaps a little bit of support could help you get the results you need and the recognition that you deserve. My guest today is Ann Bennett. Ann is she's a branding and marketing specialist. She's fun. She and I met when we were both speaking at a conference, and I was really impressed by her. And she has a lot to say about what makes you important, what makes people notice you, and how you need to know who you are to know what works best. The official bio is that Ann Bennett is the founder of renegadebranding.com. She's an international speaker, best-selling author, coach, brand profit builder. She uses her marketing and branding genius to help women experts and a few good men build their standout personal brands and boost their profitability and their presence. She works with purpose-driven experts who do transformational work so that they can liberate and ignite their unique genius and their authentic voice and really build the right brand platform that will get them where they need to go. Ann has 25 years of experience in visual and graphic design and has brought her talents to many major magazines, from Popular Mechanics to Vogue. Ann Bennett is a lot of fun. I know that you'll enjoy this interview. Here comes Ann Bennett. Ann Bennett, it's so much fun to see you again. Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So listeners, Ann and I were at a conference. We met at a conference in London in 2019. Who knew that everything would change after that? And we had our tables in the back of the room were next to each other. So I had a great fun watching her and being incredibly impressed. So I'm glad to have you now on Speakers Who Get Results. Before I get into all the cool things I'm going to ask you about, let me know, who is your dream interview? So somebody from history whom you'd like to interview. What would you ask them, and who should be listening?
That's such a great question. You know, a lot of times when we think about historical figures, someone that I'm enthralled by, and it's like, I don't even have a clue about how she created what she did, was Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc, okay.
She was kind of the original badass, if you will, in terms of leadership.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think she was 13 or 14 years old.
Yep.
Young girl leading a giant French army, right?
Yeah.
And having all these men follow her into battle. I mean, seriously at that point, women weren't even allowed to go anywhere, do anything other than cook and have babies.
Yes.
Hasn't changed that much.
Right. Uh-huh.
To me, it was like, I would love to just have dinner with her and discuss what kind of enrollment conversation, what type of inspiration, what type of heart did she present over and over to do these incredible things with all these men. And
Yes.
To me, it's like, that's very inspirational. And at that young age, almost impossible to actually achieve.
And then, of course, she was slapped down and burned at the stake. Yeah. So, she got the results for her client, if you will. And
Sure did.
She got the results, and then she was no fun to have around. There's an old saying that heroes are no fun to live with at home.
Yeah, that's probably pretty true.
So who should be listening?
Who should be listening to her? Or who should be
that conversation?
Well, I think that, who should be listening at the table?
Yeah.
The table? I think any woman who leads people.
Okay.
Who is in a leadership role and knows she's got big ideas that might not be, could be very innovative or have an opinion that's different than whatever the powers that be are, like how to enroll them in the concepts and the ideas, because that's what she did. I mean, I don't think she was the best warrior on the team, but she was definitely the one to lead everyone. She was the visionary. Definitely.
She was the visionary. It's funny. I wasn't going to go here, but I just thinking about, I'm going to ask you about impact and the impact you made. And one of the things is that visionaries, leaders, the people with that spark, they need to have somebody beside them who gets things done.
An understatement, I believe.
Yes. All those years in opera, I worked with a lot of visionaries where there was somebody following around behind them, figuring out how to get things done. Yeah. And I'd be curious. My dad always used to say, there are two kinds of people in the world, thinker-uppers and getter-doners. And you need both.
That's cute. Yeah. And they're not mutually exclusive in one person, but usually as a visionary, people are more apt to be strategy oriented, big picture oriented. And the getter-doner types are more like the other troops, right? The other team. The other people that come in with their own sense of expertise, their own genius in the implementation of a concept or an idea. The innovators are the big future thinkers and ushering in concepts and ideas that, in Joan's case, might not be that popular.
Yes,
with the general population, but same thing happens in business, right?
Yes.
The visionaries are always pushing the envelope. They're up on the edge or over the edge sometimes. And their team is the one that needs to bring in all the pieces of how it's going to work, the logistical aspects of it.
And actually that brings up another thought about that, is that we only hear about the visions that work. Which I think are maybe 5%, if that, or 1%, or as Thomas Edison said, it didn't take him, he didn't fail 99 times. He just found 99 things that didn't work.
Exactly.
So,
he's the perfect example of that, because he took what he made the hypothesis. He took the idea and the concept.
This is Thomas Edison of inventing the light bulb, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then he, at one point, after I don't know how many trial and error fails, he became aware of, so he was iterating the whole time.
Yes. So putting things, he was
changing,
putting things into action and changing. Yes.
Yeah. And then, oh, this didn't work, or this kind of worked, or this worked better. And then he'd go to one where it worked better. And at one point he discovered filament.
Uh-huh.
And that's the missing ingredient, was this one thing, this filament that actually was the thing that we know as now as light. Right?
So the filament is the little piece of wire that goes between the two electrical poles that burns, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Prior to that, he tried all these other things that didn't work well, right? Or it didn't work at all. And that's why he ended up, he's the perfect in terms of visionary. He had the concept and the idea and, the tenacity, I guess, or the blind ambition, we could call it, or whatever, to actually go through all the steps to get to where he wanted to go. And when I listen to some of my other mentors talk about making billions of dollars, it's very similar in the trajectory that you're doing. It's
meaning what?
Meaning like it looks like you're failing when you're just going to a new idea. Oh, let me try that. This didn't really work, or not work as well as I want it to. So you're just iterating slightly. It's never like changing complete directions. Like he didn't all of a sudden decide he was going to invent the doorknob. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. He stayed in with the vision of the light bulb, but he really, I think it's something crazy like 1,000 times or more than 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Iterating and trying ideas. And that's to me what it takes. What it takes to actually build a super successful business, or if you're working for a corporation or some other entity, it's all part of that.
Which I think, and I want to circle back to the thinker, uppers, and getter doners in a minute, but I think this leads me to one of the questions I had for you, which is, how much does mindset play in our success? I mean, if you think about the mindset of Joan of Arc or the mindset of Thomas Edison, keeping going.
Yeah. Keeping, like, it's not over till I win kind of attitude. It's just another day. I think for me, my personal opinion is that mindset is at least 90%.
Okay.
And everything else is strategies and tactics.
Okay.
They work well or not as well as you would like them to. But in order to stay persistent like that and focused and continuing on through the ups and downs of everything, just like, being married for a long time and actually still being in love with the person. And thinking they're the best thing since you met them on day one. And now it's, 200 years later, it's the same. I love you and I admire you and I respect you. I think it's the same thing in terms of mindset for building a business or really doing anything that you want to accomplish that's you don't know how to do it. I mean, who knows how to stay married for 50, 60 years and still be in love and excited about the other person? Oh, I don't even know them that well. I've only been married to them, 50 years. Because what happens when we think we know, it's like your world shrinks.
Ah, good point. All right.
You don't know and you stay curious. Well, I don't know what Elizabeth is going to be like today. She's not the same person that she was yesterday because she's growing and changing. I'm growing and changing. Obviously, and the environment is chaotic.
Yes.
It's always in change. So it's like when we start to think we know something or we know someone, it really limits what we're capable of, I believe. I think, to become limitless is to be able to be curious
Mm-hmm.
and face things in a new, with the I don't know attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't really know how that's going to go.
So at what point do we recognize that maybe we have a vision and it's not going to work? Because there's an appalling, for instance, tech projects. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's something like 67% of tech projects fail.
Mm-hmm.
And you never hear about them. You only hear about the ones that win, or all the lottery numbers that don't come through. You only hear about the person who wins the mega millions.
Right.
How do you think about pursuing a vision when maybe you've gone down the wrong road?
Well, my personal opinion is all the roads are the right road.
Okay. All
and
right.
make a decision and make it right
Mm-hmm.
are two of my favorite things. Make a decision, make it right. You can always make another decision, but you
Okay.
must make a decision. Decisiveness is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean you won't change your mind or move direction, be flexible enough to move directions. But I think it's a really great game that we play with ourselves. It's kind of like, how much fun is it to know where it's going to go and how it's going to be? And, there's no surprises, delights, or disappointments.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little boring.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I like to live in a very exciting, excitable way.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's fun.
Okay.
It's a fun thing to do. And I think as entrepreneurs, certainly entrepreneurs have it times 10,
Yes.
the sense of adventure. But I think also visionaries and people that start companies have these same ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, a tremendous, I don't know what the percentage is of people that start things and don't complete them, or they fail, or they never get
Fail
to
forward fast.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's probably a
Very
lot.
American attitude, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of an interesting idea. Instead of failing forward fast, what if we held it like, well, I'm moving forward and I'm iterating. So I'm changing quickly.
Okay. For our non-English speaking, our international listeners, what do you mean by iterating? Explain that, please.
Oh, I mean, I'm doing it again with a few a few corrections.
Okay.
I'm seeing something that needs a correction or it's small adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm adjusting slightly, and then I'm going again, and then I'm adjusting slightly and going again. Because when we can hold that curiosity and that idea that if you're totally on the wrong, most people that I've seen, the ones that are successful are constantly changing what it is they're doing. Not in big steps, though, but in very tiny steps.
Right.
Little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Tweaking and refining.
Yeah,
tweaking and refining.
Time. And I think that people that start and stop and start and stop, that's really hard. That wears me out thinking about it.
Yeah, I think this is when I need to ask you. So you do branding and public relations, and you are the Rebel brand. Rebels. Talk to me about the 4 Rebel brand archetypes. These are the 4 renegade archetypes. Yeah. That I was talking about thinker-uppers and getter-doners, but you've actually got 4.
Yeah, I developed them just to create simplicity.
Okay.
Because we're very complex as human beings, we like to make it really hard. Excuse me. I thought, let's label everybody into 4 distinct categories. You're a nurturer, disruptor, innovator, or a geek. And of course, you can have primary and secondary things that you lead with. But when you're developing a brand, you want to land on the one thing that people see and the one thing that people recognize about either your product or your service, so that it's what leads. And when you think about Joan,
what are you leading with? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, she led with certain language, inspiration. She gathered people behind her for something larger than herself.
Mm-hmm.
So a brand is actually a way of, it's an emotion, and it's something larger than you.
Okay.
So it's not just nice pictures or a tagline or colors. It's actually a movement that's a lot bigger than you are, so that other people can align and play and want to be a part of it.
So if we apply these archetypes to working within an organization, where you certainly need your personal brand, and how important that is, explain. Can you tell us a little bit about who these 4 people are, and why does it matter to know who you work with well and who not?
Well, I think it's really great because, we're always like, we're these kind of people where we want people to be just like us. Yes. I don't know why. It doesn't really make for great
I think business. Everybody does. Yeah, you assume everybody thinks the way you do.
They want to think the way I do or do things the way I do. And when you have archetypes, you can see the gifts and the beauty of people that are different than you are, or approach a problem-solving situation different than you approach it. It gives you more options and ideas. So it's kind of like, if you're a nurturer, you're going to be looking at, the clients or the people that you're serving as the most important aspect of the business.
People focused.
Exactly. If you're like a disruptor, you're going to be all about, let's push the boundaries, have a point of view, stand out, be different, be controversial. You're going to be the one that's a little bit of the troublemaker. You're definitely the rebel in that group. And then you've got your innovators that are like thinking big picture, and they're thinking about, what's the biggest thing we can do and how is it going to impact our clients, our people, our service. And then you've got your geeks that are like, they want to have like everything planned out, and they know where they're going, and they know all the little pieces to make it happen.
Those are the getter-doners. Yes.
Yeah, those are the real getter-doners in my world. Everyone has a level of getting things done. So it's not as cut and dried, but there are people that are more in the kind of the visionary, dreamy, creative side. And then there's the ones that are like, I'm just going to take care of my people because they're the most important thing ever. My people, my environment, my culture of my corporation is the most important thing, right? So they all have their focus on what the most important thing is. And when you bring them together, then you have a team that's really able to push and pull each other and hopefully inspire each other to see different ways to solve a problem and different things that they could do. So like your disruptor is going to say something totally different than your geek.
Right.
And neither one is better than the other. They're actually great. It's like whoever solves the problem is, it's all about that. It's not about, being better than other people. You want to be on a team. It's all about everybody.
Well, and that the innovators really need, as we were saying earlier, they really need the geeks, the people who are going to check all the boxes and go through the list, because having worked many times with people who've got a whole bunch of brilliant ideas, you never know if they're good ideas. I often say, I've got lots of ideas. They're not all good ideas. So, I always make sure that my team checks me and says, do you really want that? Do you really mean that? And usually it's the third or fourth revision is the one that we wind up with, because for me, at least, I need to go through several versions till I know exactly what's going to make sense. Yeah, I have people who can do it. I know people who can do it just right off the top of their head, and they're right. It's incredibly annoying for those of us for whom it's much harder.
I know. You're what?
Yeah. How do you, once you've identified what you're good at or what your archetype is, how do you use that to deal with the other archetypes?
I think it's great. It's a really good question. And I think it gives us no, I wouldn't say the excuse so much, but it does give us the known factor. So I'm a disruptor. I love working with geeks. They're my favorite people because they get stuff done. And they're much more, they're logical. They're logical and pragmatic, where I can be very pragmatic, but I'm not a linear thinker.
Okay.
So when I look at things, I'm kind of out in a bigger arena where my geeks are like, okay, Anne, we want to have a plan, and can you like do a brain dump, and then we can take that and put it in a spreadsheet, and then we can take that, and actually,
right.
And I think that it's great. So when I talk to them, I'm talking to them like that.
Yeah.
I'm saying, hey, how would you solve this problem? Here's my problem. What's the best, fastest, easiest, most efficient way to do it? I have no idea. I just have this problem, or I want to create this event, or I want to do whatever it is I'm doing. Like today, for instance, I was talking with one of my team players, one of my big geeks, and I was like, well, I really I have all these ideas and all of these projects, and they're happening all at once, and I really can only focus on one thing at a time.
Right.
And I can really only sell one thing at a time, present one thing at a time. And how do I keep track of everything so it all gets done in on a timeline? I'm like, there's a fire. Great. I'll put it out. That's kind of how I run. There's a fire. Great. I'll put it out. I'm really good at swinging by the seat of my pants and solving problems very quickly. And not so great on the planning aspect of breaking a large project down. So, she was like, well, just put it in a spreadsheet and I'll figure it out. And I'm like, a spreadsheet?
You will? You'll do that for me?
Like a spreadsheet? How about, can I do a brain dump? Like, that's what I'm good at. Let me just.
Really, I often think about that kind of relationship as, she's an anchor for you, and you kick her out of her rut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'm pushing. For her, I'm sure it feels like pushing. I'm just doing what I'm doing, which is trying to expand as much as possible all the time. And she's probably like, settle down.
Yes.
We need a plan to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think the lesson for this is something I learned the hard way, having made many mistakes, is to surround ourselves with people who think differently. And if you know where you're not good, the parts that you're weak on, find someone who's good at that, who likes it, and have them do that. I have a friend who has lots of big picture ideas. She thinks about world issues. And she is responsible for finances for an organization. She sort of inherited a finance job. And I said, hire a bookkeeper, because the bookkeeper will love working with the numbers. And it's really not your genius. And then you can think about the great philosophical questions that you're really good at.
Right.
Yeah. So as long as you know that about yourself.
Yeah. So when you know your archetype, it does allow you to go, oh, well, I'm very, much of a geek. I need a big picture person. Okay. I need an innovator, or I need a disruptor to break out of and help me get even bigger in the way that I think. Right. So there's all these.
So, Anne, let me ask you, how can you use this knowledge of what you're good? How can you tell people what you're good at, or tell people what you need in order to function better?
Yeah, it's so great. I have a client I'm working with right now who's she's very geeky. She's super computer savvy and writes programs and all this stuff. And we're working on a project that has to do with, I call it enhanced reality, but it's got a different name. And when I finish speaking with her, she's always like, okay, could you just give me the list of what we're going to do next?
Yes, the list.
Because I'm like talking about, we're going to do this, and then we're going to enroll this person. We're going to get money from over here, and I'm going to introduce you to this one. And, you know, I've got this big thing happening. And she's like, okay, just make a list of 3. Tell me the 3 things we're going to do next.
Yeah. Okay. So that is asking for what you need, knowing what you need, and then asking for what you need. Yeah.
And like for me, being a disruptor, if I get too much information, I get small. So like I give all the big information and all the chunks to my clients and my coworkers and the people that work with me that are geeks, because they love that. They're like, I'm going to eat this up and I feel great. And for me, I'm like, a spreadsheet.
Right. We all have to do it. And the key is to make sure you know what really works. Yeah. And Bennett, it has been so much fun to work with you. I'm just going to ask one more question. Talk to us about what the word impact means to you.
I think impact is about expanding how other people think.
So is this the impact? Okay, keep going.
Influence is more like once they're impacted, they want to follow.
Okay.
Or I have command over, a certain amount of people. Or I have this influence out in the world, or I have I've got 10,000 people in my leads, or, I got 100 million clients, or whatever that is. But I think impact is when you can really shake up and expand how people think and view something. They have a point of view, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I could do that and it'd be that easy. Or, oh, how does that work? You're causing kind of a curiosity or a willingness.
Breaking the pattern. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we stood next to each other in that terrible hotel basement.
So, speakers who get results, man, they'll do almost anything to speak.
Yes, right. Well, I learned a lot and I met some great people there. So it was a wonderful conference. We had a good time. And I met you, which was great fun. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was
and this has been Speakers Who Get Results. I'll put information about Ann Bennett and how you can find out more about her in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please tell your friends. Ask your friends to subscribe, follow us on YouTube, follow us on whatever podcast app you use, and please leave a good review with Apple Podcasts. That's the one that matters. If you leave us a good review at Apple Podcasts, more people will see us. This has been Speakers Who Get Results. I'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes, and thanks for tuning in.